Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this packed seminar, which is always good to see. I'm Andrew McClelland from IMRG, and today we're talking about the impact of digital on the high street and vice versa. I think one of the things that we need to do to set the context of this is that we've always seen online as something different and something separate. We also think of consumers in the third person. Well, actually, we're all consumers ourselves. So we start thinking about how we're behaving, how we're interacting with technology, and how our interaction with retail brands is changing. I think it's also important to bear in mind that consumers, on the whole, will trade with brands. They don't trade with channels. For many years, we've actually had this discussion about online's killing the high street. Well, actually, you need to go back a lot further than that, and it's difficult to blame online for the demise of the high street. You go back to the 80s, you started seeing out-of-town shopping centres, you started seeing destination shopping centres, and what was changing was how consumers, how we wanted to interact with the retail brands, what we were expecting from the retail experience. And increasingly, where we are social animals, the way that we want to go about our shopping behaviours is as groups with friends. It's a social activity as much as it is a transactional activity. And for many years, the high street has been threatened by the out-of-town theatre of retail, the opportunity for these big out-of-town centres to provide that opportunity to shop, to drink, to eat, to socialise with our friends. What the internet has done is it's enabled us to access a huge amount of choice and variety and makes us masters of choice, if you like. Value, choice and convenience. That's what the internet has really brought to the consumer in the high street scenario. Something that IMRG has been doing very recently is we've started breaking out mobile sales from traditional online sales. What we've now started doing is also breaking out mobile between tablet and smartphone. So the headline is, desktop sales are flatlining. We're not seeing any growth in online through desktop/laptop. The growth is coming from mobile devices. What do we mean by mobile devices? Well, the majority of it's tablet, and that's probably a displacement activity from what we used to see on the laptop, which was originally on the traditional desktop. But actually, the fastest growing element is smartphones. And this is where we start touching the discussions this morning. How is the smartphone empowering the consumer in the high street? How does that challenge the retail brand in terms of the proposition for the consumer? Because actually the retail brand wants to have that conversation across those different channels. It wants to be able to have that conversation about the retail proposition in different ways, but actually it doesn't really matter where the sale is finally transacted. So to discuss this and other subjects this afternoon around the digitisation of the high street, we've got a great panel. We've got Martin from Google, we've got Katie from Nectar, Rosie from Fruugo, and Glenn from Yelp. I could get that right. Wrong way round. Anyway, Martin, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Martijn Bertelsen. I work for Google. Been there for about 6 years. I head up the relationships between Google and our major retail advertisers within the UK. Specialize a little bit more on fashion than on other categories. But so that's my background is at DSGI, or Dixons, as they are called now. So I have seen the retail side as well. Quick, I guess 1 minute on the topic. Yeah. It'd be very easy, I think, for me to sit here and say, well, the high street is dead. It's all about digital. That's the space that we're in. I actually fundamentally don't believe that. I think what is happening is there's obviously a real shift going on in consumer behavior as a result of the amount of connectivity that we're seeing across devices, the amount of data that is being consumed, and therefore the amount of information that is available. And consumer journeys are therefore fundamentally changing, whereas in the past they might have been relatively straightforward. Now we're seeing incredibly complex journeys across multiple devices, multiple online channels, online and offline channels, and even now across borders as well. So it's becoming more and more complex. And already alluded to the device, I think, that is connecting the physical and the digital world, the mobile. and the smartphone. And I actually, over the next 30 minutes, when I allude to mobile, I will only be alluding to smartphones, because I completely agree that tablets are more the extension of desktops. And I think it's the mobile device that is going to connect the physical and the digital world in a way that will completely change the way that customers and consumers buy your products. And we will go into a little bit more into some of the trends that we're seeing there as well. But I'll pass it on.
Hi, my name is Katie Clark. I work for Nectar, specifically on Nectar eShops, an online portal. My background is very much multi-channel, back in the retailer space. So currently working within the loyalty space, I've come from brands such as Carphone Warehouse, Tesco, Marks and Spencer's, TK Maxx, etc. So I think for me, what's really interesting over the last few years, and certainly what's coming, is how consumer behaviour has changed and continues to evolve at such a fast rate. I think what's really exciting is the technology that's here now and what's also coming again. And I think for me, I've always had a customer-centric mind, so I'm always keen to see how new technology and new formats can help customers get the best out of their shopping journey, whether that's offline, online, from the start of the day when you turn on your phone, or rather your phone goes off to tell you that you've got to wake up, through to checking Facebook, to LinkedIn, to doing your grocery online, to checking your train travel for the way home. I think it's an exciting place to be right now, and I think we shouldn't be afraid of using new technology and failing and trying and starting again. I think there's going to be a lot of things that we can try that don't work, but actually that's where we'll get the learnings to really move forward.
Hi everyone, I'm Rosie Aikenhead. I work for Yelp UK and Ireland. I just did a speech, so I hope that there's not too many of the same people, so I'm not too repetitive. But I'm the manager of business outreach, so what I do is I work with small to medium-sized businesses, help them with online reviewing strategy, and help them get their online reputation in place. So my 2 cents on the future of the high street, obviously Yelp itself is an inherently online brand, but we work with all of these brands that are on the high street and around. I kind of use the term for high street as not necessarily just one street that runs through any particular town, but also all those small little shops that are in your local area. Maybe it's not a high street per se, but every shop and everything under that bracket. I guess my feelings on it are that the high street is not dead. And I would say that quite strongly, because when you leave here, all of you are probably going to end up before the end of the day going to a shop of some type, a shop or a restaurant or a bar maybe. It's getting towards the end of the day. So yes, it's adapting. Yes, the way that people do it is really different to how it was 5, 10 years ago, even last year. And people are checking in. Like, we know that from our Yelp app, that people are checking in all the time to various different businesses. But all in all, it's just a way of, I think, like Katie said, really adapting it and making sure that strategies for all those brands are on point, but still encouraging people to come in store, because there's a lot of value in store.
Hi, I'm Glenn Richardson, the Chief Marketing Officer of Fruugo, and we're a global marketplace trading in 23 countries, and we solve the cross-border problem for retailers by enabling them to sell in 23 countries. And it's quite interesting because we're a pure-play retailer online, and in fact we represent many retailers. So what do we know about the high street? Well, I believe that shoppers have changed, especially now that digital and e-commerce is so prevalent, and we all shop online. So as a result of that, when we walk into a store, we kind of see stores completely differently now. In fact, we see them as like 3D websites, like a showroom, to actually pick up the products that we are considering buying online, or have bought online, or are going to buy online. So we're running some experiments. In fact, today we have a pop-up shop at the entrance of the Expo. Many of you hopefully have seen that. And we're experimenting with different technologies, augmented reality and holographic displays. And we think that stores should be venues to experience the brand and the culture than just somewhere to be a transactional place. So that's what I think about the high street.
So, question to the panel then. Over 60% of us shop with different brands online than we do on the high street. How does a pure play compete in that space? When you're going into the showroom, for example, we hear about showrooming, but how does that online brand, that pure play, compete for space? How do they compete for that mind share, if you like?
I'll attempt to answer that question, seeing I'm holding the microphone. So, most people want to research the product that they buy online first, either online, and a lot of people like to research it physically in a store as well. And of course, the showrooming phenomenon is that of someone seeing a product in a shop and then going and buying it elsewhere online. And I think that retailers need to get in the mindset of encouraging showrooming, but in store, and actually encourage them to buy products online, but from them, through their mobile app or through their mobile website, and try and capture the sale there and then whilst they're in impulse buying mode, and actually use their own technology and their own e-commerce systems. I mean, for instance, if you bought something from Fruugo today at the pop-up shop, you wouldn't want to carry it around the show all day. In fact, it'd be far more convenient for it to be delivered to you at home. So lots of other people are in the same boat, and even in shopping malls, people want to buy a product, don't particularly want to carry it around all day. In fact, it's highly convenient for it to be delivered at home. So anyone else got any thoughts?
So recently, and we talk about showrooming, we at AMIA have conducted some research around showrooming, and actually what's coming out is I think there's probably an assumption that customers are automatically going into that mindset of I'm going to go into a retail store, I'm going to view a product, and actually I'm just going to go and buy it online. The research that we've seen actually is not quite that simple. We have a number of segments where the smallest segment is actually that group of people who are really online digitally savvy, and you know what, that's what they're going to do. But there's actually a large group of people who are just using the mobile device as a reference point. It's research. It's is it a better price online? But actually, is the convenience factor of me buying it? It's right here in front of me. What I want to do right this second. So I think showrooming we hear a lot of. It is something to be aware of, but it's how retailers then actually adapt, as we've said, their strategies. When you look at warehouse, you walk into a warehouse store on Argyle Street in London, they've got iPads in store now. I'm not entirely clear exactly sort of what their plans are there in terms of whether it's for shopping or just research, but ultimately they're starting to embrace the fact that people will come in, they will research, and it's about how we can attract customers to either buy there and then because of convenience, or actually accept the fact that they're okay to buy online. But I don't think we're quite there yet.
Martin.
Yeah, I would just say, first of all, I think having the physical asset is a huge advantage, right? Having the physical asset allows you to display your product and to offer a service and connect with your consumer in a way that can be very difficult to do in a digital space. So I would argue that having that physical presence, if you do something great with it and you actually turn it into a theatre, the likes of Burberry on Regent Street, you have an amazing proposition there. And then actually it is no longer just about price, because you're never going to win that anyway. What can pure players do, on the other hand, is the phenomenal exists. And when we look at search queries within Google, we know that about 40% of all the queries that happen on a mobile device have a high local intent. It's people that, it's a consumer, a customer that is on the high street, that is looking for a product, looking for a location, etc. So taking advantage of that, both as a multi-channel player to get the customer into your physical proposition and wow them, but it also allows you to be quite entrepreneurial and scrappy as a competitor or as a pure player, to say, I know somebody is within 500 meters of Westfield, and I am Net-a-Porter, and I know that there is a type customer that goes there and buys luxury items. I want to target them, and I want to up my targeting. Those things are now possible, right? Through mobile devices. We know where the consumer is. We can target them with ads. We can upweight our exposure based on location, based on time of day, etc. So there's loads of opportunity in that space.
And Katie, I think it's probably a point for you. We've got these massive demands on our attention, whether it's, you look at some of the figures that Angry Birds put out about how many minutes a year is spent playing Angry Birds. You get these games that are constantly competing for our attention. How can retailers compete for that attention? How can retailers use things like loyalty to actually have that conversation? Because you've got a store. Is it a showroom? Is it an opportunity to sell? Or is it an opportunity to have a discussion with them?
I think it can be one of all of those things, to be honest with you. I think you need to be clear on what your objective is as that particular retailer. I mean, for Nectar, we engage with our consumers through loyalty points. It's a really sticky mechanism that people want to continue to earn points, and we do that in a number of different ways. As an example, for Sainsbury's, before you walk into the store, if you've downloaded the app, you can click on your offers. It will come up with all the offers that are relevant to you at that point in time. So you might have 100 bonus points on bananas this week. And then you click to accept those offers, and as soon as you're in the store, it recognises you're there, and it will add that to your account at the end of your shopping trip. In terms of how we how we own the share, I think it just comes back to the objective of the retailer. What are you trying to do? I don't think it's a broad brush approach. I think a lot of retailers, or all of us, can be a little bit quick to try and create an app, to try and create something that doesn't really have a purpose, because we think that an app will suddenly fix it. So I think it's being clear about what you want, and not just following the crowd. We've got lots of technology. Use it appropriately for your brand.
Yeah. Rosie?
Yeah, I just wanted to, it's a bit loud, just make a comment on the kind of having people come in store. So there are a couple of brands that have kind of gone against the trend. I know we're at an e-commerce summit, so the aim is really to get everybody online and functioning properly online. But what about businesses like, I think it's Oak Furnitureland, like Kiddie Care, who have now set up tons and tons of retail shops? I'm not saying I've specifically got an answer, but they're obviously seeing a lot of value. And I know places like Argos, John Lewis now do that click and collect. So they're buying stuff online and then going to the shop to collect. And I mean, I'm not from the retail background, but I wondered if you guys had any comments on that.
Yeah, I mean, Made.com, Fab.com, Warby Parker, and there's a whole list of other really big online retailers that have started to hit the high street, and they've opened up shops. I mean, Made.com, for instance, it's just like a photo studio. You know, it's like really well presented products with QR codes, so you can scan it and then go onto their website and check prices and all that type of stuff. And I think that the pure play retailers are really showing us how the showroom of the future really looks. Warby Parker have a retrofitted school bus that are travelling around America, and Warby Parker actually sell spectacles, and they're a very popular online brand in the States. And they're taking their culture on the road to all the major cities across the US. And I think this is really showing us what the online retailers and e-commerce is really showing the old school retailers, you know, what the future really looks like. And I actually think the champions of the high street in the future are going to be the pure play retailers that hit the high street.
I think just to add to that, the eBay Argos example that you speak about, that you probably all saw last week, I think is a really good example where you've got a pure play working alongside somebody who obviously has a very clear digital strategy over the next couple of years, which is with Argos. But I think it's really clever that they've joined forces and just used traditional retailing space to use the pure play online.
But surely there is still the problem about how do you as a brand have those conversation, a consistent conversation across those different channels? And is this where things like search are starting to play a role in that constant communication? So I'm in a store, we know that retail doesn't appear in the top 10 websites that people visit when they're out and about. So what are people looking at? They're looking at social, they're looking at email. You know, how can you, as a brand, continue that conversation across those different channels?
Yeah, I think I would look at it as an opportunity, right? If you think about all those devices, all the different channels that you're alluding to, all the different touch points, effectively you got millions of moments that matter to your customer, where you have an opportunity to earn their love, their loyalty, and wherever that might be across the web. So I don't think necessarily that you're going to be able to exclude certain channels to have that conversation on. You're going to have to figure out where your consumer is and play an active role. And I think it's creating a big issue for retailers to manage Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, YouTube, search, etc. And how you actually source up. How do you organize as an organization to have those conversations? How do you respond to them? I think you mentioned it this morning in your keynote around how do you respond to a piece of feedback that you got on a product or a delivery, etc. What's your brand? So being very clear about what each one of those channels, what function each one of those channels has for you as a company, and what the message is that you want to get across, I think is critical. and having a coherent kind of strategy that covers that.
We hear a lot of statistics about how many smartphones are in circulation, but I think what you ought to counter that with is you try and buy a dumb phone these days. It's very difficult. So what that does is that leads me on to the point that we've got a lot of smartphones in circulation. We've done some investment in the technology. And whereas at the beginning of the internet, the consumer was ahead of us, they were investing in the dial-up connections at that time, they were investing in the PCs. Now they've actually got the tools in their hand. How do we encourage them to start using them for our benefit? How do we start educating? Is there a role for retail to start saying, you've got this device, it's bring your own device, BYOD, in store, we can help you look for these, you've got elastic walls. Is there a role for retail to actually start educating our customers in what they can do with these things?
I think there is, but I think it's being careful about what you're educating or to what length. I think it comes. My kind of point that I probably keep sort of homing in on is there's lots of technology, there's lots of ways of doing this. We're starting to see more retailers put Wi-Fi in store, which is great, but it's coming back to what is it you're asking your customer to do? What's the benefit to them? If you're just sticking Wi-Fi in and asking them to do something that's actually a longer process than walking up to a piece of clothing and buying it, then that's not really helpful. So it just keeps coming back to how are you helping the customer get more out of their journey, for sure.
And I'd add to that, actually, because I think that there are a lot of people going into stores. There are a lot of people going into stores, and their intention is not to buy. Their intention is to just look and then go home and then buy online. And I think that we need to educate customers that they can buy there and then from that retailer. And I think that Wi-Fi is an enabler for that, because in a lot of shops there isn't good 3G connection because we're in a physical building with bricks that obfuscate, signals, etc. So I think Wi-Fi is really an important enabler for people to buy in store. But actually, it's actually interesting from the loyalty piece, because a lot of people are quite happy to go, okay, yeah, I'll put my email address in before I connect, like we all have done today with, there's a Wi-Fi sponsored by Barclays. Is it Barclays? Yeah, so we put our email address in. We're quite happy to do that to get Wi-Fi. So, and I think that's great from a loyalty point of view, because you can take their mobile number and even text them a daily deal, or each time they enter the shop, you can communicate with them. So it doesn't really answer your question, but it kind of counters that. But I think that from an educational point of view, we do have to be careful what we're educating. We're only 200 weeks into the mobile phone revolution. It's not established yet. It's still the Wild West. There isn't really any clear leaders in each of the different areas of mobile. So I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but I think we need to be educating customers that they can buy in store but online, and that's why we're creating apps and responsive websites.
Well, in an industry that's only 18 years old, 200 weeks is actually growing up fast.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I actually think it'd be incredibly arrogant to think that retailers have to educate the consumer. I frankly think the consumer is educating the retailer right now. The consumer is so far ahead in the usage of technology and the usage of devices that retailers just frankly have to try and catch up with some of that. You walk up and down Oxford Street, you go into every single shoe store on Oxford Street, and at the end try and summarize what pieces of technology you've seen that were really groundbreaking and were trying to bring together a digital and a physical world. You can literally count them on one hand, and you can find 20 floors with them. So I think, yes, of course, but put stuff out there. I think the consumer will use it when you put stuff out there. There's no fabricated way where you have to try and educate them to use it. If it's useful to them, they will use it. But start putting it out there. There's actually not that much out there that is there for use for the consumer, right?
I'd just like to add one point to that, which is that I don't know about anyone else in this audience, but when I'm shopping, I'm not necessarily wanting to stop by and look at an iPad. Like, I think Martin makes a good point, which is that if it's not relevant and it's not useful, then don't do it. But if there is something there which is saying, hey, like the Nectar program where people are going in and they have a number of different deals for a number of different businesses at any one time, then that's really useful. But I guess my point is, if you're a good business, people are probably already saying good stuff about you online. That's where people are sourcing their information now. And as a result, you're going to get customers. You don't have to over-digitalize to be successful.
So interestingly, that a conversation about the high street and the internet is actually moving into a discussion about mobile? Is there a message in there somewhere? Is that actually, what mobile is doing is it's providing us with an opportunity as consumers and as brands to actually break down the barriers between the channels. Channels don't matter anymore.
I can probably start this one off. So obviously with Yelp, we get a lot, 108 million unique visitors a month. And I think 45% of them come from our mobile app. In fact, 59% come from mobile device in general. So that's mobile web and mobile app combined. So with that in mind, yes, like the customer is inherently mobile. I mean, obviously what we do specifically, it is taking people around and about to different places. So it makes sense that it's on the move. But I think don't underestimate, and I'm sure that Martin has some stats to back this up, that people are browsing and shopping on the move, and maybe they're not making a purchase online all the time, but that doesn't mean that they're then not walking into the store and buying, but there's no way to track that particular transaction.
Thanks. A very good point, though. I think obviously very simple. You look at conversions on your mobile website. And you will say, well, actually, mobile doesn't convert for us. There's no value to it. You're absolutely right. I think in the next couple of weeks, Google Analytics is going to start implementing and showing you the cross-device value of a user. So we look at logged-in users, and we're going to be able to tell you 10%, 15% of people starting the journey on a mobile device finish that transaction and complete the transaction on a desktop or on a tablet device. So you can start to bridge that gap. But even something simple as how many people have visited your store finder on your mobile website? What is the most logical thing your consumer is going to do after they looked for the address of the nearest store? Apply some conservative consumptions, and all of a sudden you have an economic value, a cross-channel economic value to mobile, and you can attribute that back. To the mobile point, absolutely. I mean, mobile right now is the device that we carry 24/7. It's the most personal device that we have. We use it 150 times a day, all the other stats. I think in the future, what is potentially going to replace that, though, is the more wearable devices. Because the mobile phone is still always in the way of whatever you're doing at that point in time. And although it's there, you still have to consciously get it up. But once we start using more wearable devices, whether it's the watch that just came out from Samsung or whether it's Google Glass, I think that is really going to transform the way that we retail and the way that we connect digital with the physical world again.
So mobile is much more, it's task orientated. Its use is about doing something. Store Finder is a good example. Whereas tablet, laptop usage is more about the browsing experience. But what that does bring into the high street environment is that immediacy, that call to action, that ability to do something very quickly. How can retailers capitalize on that in store? Is it about loyalty? Is it about redeeming vouchers? Is it about looking for choice? Is this something that we could perhaps finish this session on before we go to Q&A?
I think it's about using useful reasons why people need to take their mobile phones out of their pockets, right, in store. I mean, we use social media a great deal, and I think that why don't you create a hashtag for a store, and you can ask the store the question, and then maybe even crowdsource answers to a particular product. What do you think of this product? I'm thinking about buying it, and then you can use a hashtag for the store, and maybe even the store could jump on that conversation and go, somebody will be over in a second to speak to you, or could answer the question directly. And I think that using social media more intelligently in stores, it gives people a reason to take their phone out. And I think that image recognition of products is going to be really exciting. So companies like Blipper, where you can blip product images and bring them to life and interact with them, again, that's another reason for customers to get their mobiles out. And I think that we need to create reasons, tangible reasons to use your phone in store. So that's what I think.
One thing that I saw yesterday, actually, was maybe I'm a bit late to the party on it, but iBeacon. So it's quite an interesting product that Apple look like they're either bringing out or have brought out, where the product, it's a wireless device that sits within a retail space and sits next to products, and you can use your phone to get sort of augmented reality and information and further information on the product. So I think this just brings back the same point again, where technology will continue to evolve, and we just need to make sure we're using it intelligently to help our customers.
Rosie?
I'd say as well, I mean, I know I can probably labour the point a bit, but it doesn't necessarily, like if you're thinking about how to get the tech element in store, I thought what Glenn just said was really interesting, because actually the MGM Grand, I come from a travel background, they did a live hashtag in their lobby. It was absolutely huge. If anyone's been to Vegas, they know what I mean. And what that meant was that people were interacting in live time, in real time. It doesn't cost them much other than hosting it, but it makes them seem very social. It makes them seem very mobile savvy. And maybe that's actually what the consumer's looking for, especially when maybe you're in Vegas, it's a bit of fun. But I think just kind of putting it in perspective that there's loads of stuff on the market, there's tons and tons of technological advancements, but do you need to take it to that stage just yet? I don't know.
Martin?
Well, what it does, what mobile does for me is it allows you as a retailer to be much more personal in how you communicate with your audience. So I said it this morning, I think the days of generic discounts, generic sale messages, frankly, should be dead. I think it's almost insulting to consumers to treat them all as the same. The mobile device allows you to treat them as individuals. You know where they are, again, you know their past history, you know whether they've shopped with you, etc. And I think that area allows, like, for an unlimited amount of opportunities. You look at the US, Neiman Marcus developed an app, a personal shopper app, where you can make an appointment through the app with a store assistant, your favorite store assistant, because you can see who's working at that point in time. You then you tell them through the app what you're after. You walk into the store, he has your full service history, or she has, and knows your taste, knows what you like. And when you walk into the store, all the items that he thinks or she thinks might be right for you are already ready on display. That's a fantastic experience that mobile is starting to enable. So more of that, please.
So effectively what we're talking about is digital's bringing opportunities for retail proposition to change and for return to good quality customer service that fits with the brand. I'm afraid we've run out of time there, so thank you very much all to the panel. Thank you.